Do you know that Clive, Iowa would not even be here if it weren't for the railroad? That's why this caboose is here. It reminds us of Clive's history. A caboose was a special rail car at the end of the old freight trains. The name caboose came from the Dutch word Caboose. Caboose means the galley or cooking area on a ship's deck. That makes sense, because the caboose is where the train's crew cook their meals. This was a busy crew. The conductor did paperwork about the freight the train was carrying. The brakemen helped work the train's brakes. And climbing down from the caboose, the flagman could work the track switches so certain cars could be delivered to another track. At the front of the train, the engineer and fireman worked in the locomotive. When I was little, all the locomotives were steam engines. The engineer had to control the speed, while the fireman shoveled the coal that burned and made the steam to power the engine. Is the engineer the boss of the train because he's the driver? Nope. The conductor is actually the boss. He's in charge of the railroad cars, the freight, and the safety of the whole train. Let's take a closer look at Clive's historic caboose. First, as we climb the steps, you'll notice the hand railings. They're called grab irons. Inside, things had to be anchored, or they would slide and fall when the train was moving. Can you imagine a conductor here doing paperwork and keeping track of the rail cars and freight? Of course, there was a stove for cooking and heating. There was also an icebox for keeping food cool. See the bay windows sticking out from the sides of the caboose? Those are the window seats hanging above the track. They help the caboose crew see out along all the rail cars. Some cabooses had short window towers on top, called cupolas. Either way, the caboose crew had to keep an eye on the rail cars, looking for loose freight, broken equipment, fire, or a hobo. A hobo is someone sneaking on the train for a free ride. These days, most of us get around in cars. But over 100 years ago, it was the railroads that made it possible for many families to have a better life. The railroad meant that crops, cattle, and coal could be shipped long distances to people who wanted to buy them. The trains created jobs, and not just railroad jobs. Because of the Clive Depot, new businesses came here. Stockyard workers handled the cattle across the tracks from the depot. Coal miners dug coal a few miles to the west, and also a short distance to the north. Shopkeepers had stores here. Farmers got their crops to market faster and earned more money. Yep, the whole town grew around the depot. That's why I say Clive wouldn't be here without the railroad. A long time ago, when I was a little girl, I dreamed about working on the railroad crew and going to exciting places. Back then, only men worked on trains. Today, women can be engineers and conductors. Today, we have more ways to travel the world. And today, people from all over the world come to Clive, Iowa. Do you know why? I think it's because Clive is still a great place to be a kid.